All right, traders, this is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Morning Edge webinar. I want to welcome you back. Now, we have weekly unemployment claims that are coming out, so just so real quick heads up, we're going to deal with that first before we bring in Steve. We also have non-farm productivity unit labor costs, but market's going to be looking at the unemployment claims. 280,000 for weekly unemployment claims is what the market will be looking for. Let's take a look at the, we'll pull up the US dollar, Japanese yen. We can, like I said, we can always figure out if it's a pretty decent number based on how the dollar yen is reacting. First, so anything below 280,000 will be viewed as a positive print. Looks like the number's probably in line, maybe 278, 275. Let's see here, 276 is what the number actually came in as. So not a bad number, and you know the dollar's reflecting a pretty decent move. So not a bad piece of data. Like I said, the dollar is firming here. There's the dollar yen, and not too bad. Let's see. All right. Really not a huge reaction. I think the bigger number we'll be watching today is yeah, the IV PMI out of Canada. That's probably going to be the more volatile mover of the day. But yeah, dollar's getting a little bit of a bid underneath it. Watch the euro, especially if the euro takes out 113. If we take out 113, there are probably going to be some stops down there. Remember, this support will come into play, this 112.85. I think that's going to be a good place to be on the long side for those of you that are looking for a place to be on the long side of the euro dollar. It's probably not a bad spot. Okay, so if we get down to 112.85, all right. All right. Okay, with that being said, let me find my friend Steve Vulgi in Athens, and I'm going to bring him on. So let me find him really quick. There he is. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Good morning to you and to everybody else, or good afternoon, depending on where they are.
Yeah. No matter where you're at. I mean, if you're you're in Australia, it's good midnight. So, how are you doing today, Steve?
I'm a little bit tired, but fine.
I guess you'd probably be a little tired because as a Greek economist, you are probably staying up near around the clock, keeping an eye on what's happening with the economy over there.
Actually, to be honest, it's one of the first times I've been watching so much Greek TV. You know, to keep track of mostly of you know, of the political news, because as you understand, at the moment they're quite important. Because let me explain the whole mess at the moment is purely political.
I was going to say, please do, because I know as you you know, I've brought you on here in the past, not even to talk about Greece, but to talk about the markets in general. But you know, the last couple times have been regarding Greece. From a layman's point of view, from those of us that you know, I know as being an American, you know, we tend to focus a little bit more on what's happening in America, not so much of what's happening in other countries, and understanding the political system, I think, is the better way for me to say it. So a lot of even though a lot of your political system is very similar to ours, there are some differences. So if you can speak to, from a layman's point of view, especially for those of us that might not be super familiar with how things work in Greece.
Okay, let me first make an introduction. Greeks in general, you know, are leaning a little bit more on the left, to the left of the political spectrum than Americans, for example. And it's quite a weird mentality, because they like to live the lifestyle of you know, liberal, new liberal societies, but they want to think a little bit more, you know, like leftists. So, for example, still Greeks are for a strong social state that provides, you know, social healthcare, education, and everything for free. As you understand, that was possible up until a point, but it's increasingly impossible. Actually, it's totally impossible with the situation being what it is at the moment. At the moment, just to give you an idea, to make a fast recap, or you can call it an introduction of the financial data of Greece, besides being a country that has a GDP that has contracted for about 25% within the past 5 years, as far as I know from developed countries, that's probably a first. It's not that I have all the statistical data, but you understand what that means, having a contraction of 25% of your GDP within 5 years. That's something you would expect in a war situation, not under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
It also has a completely devastated labor market at the moment. Just to give you an idea, the labor force in Greece at the moment is less than 5 million, from which about 1.4 million are unemployed, and the rest that are employed, which are probably less than 3.5 million at the moment, have to support 2.7 million pensioners and another 1.5 million unemployed, as I just said.
My
And they
God.
have to support the social state and the pension system that would support, what I just told you, which is impossible. I mean, the numbers don't add up. Add to that the general situation that we find in any developed country, which is worsening demographics. The population is aging, which means that more people are entering pension than the labor market every year. And, you have the recipe for devastation. And that's the situation at the moment.
So, Steve, let me ask you this. Okay, so when you take the Greek economy and you fit the Greek.
By the way, for the numbers to make sense, Greeks are 11 million at the moment, for whoever doesn't know.
Oh, that's how many Greeks living in Greece.
Yes.
Okay, so what for your balance of trade, based on what Greece makes deliverable versus what you have to import in. I mean, how is it feasible that you can stay within the European Union economic model? How is it even possible at this point?
If it's possible, actually, this is a debatable issue. It would be possible under specific circumstances. For example, it's not by accident. Now we have very little time, so we're jumping from one topic to the other. But just for you to understand, the political situation now is the following. First of all, there is a disagreement between the Troika members. The IMF has a completely different opinion of what has to be done. They don't express it so openly because they don't want to come in direct conflict with the ECB and the European Commission. But the IMF actually recognizes that the current debt to GDP of Greece is definitely unserviceable. So, for example, IMF is playing very hard to agree on anything because they want people to, they want the other members of the Troika to actually admit to that fact and do something about it, like a debt write-off, a partial debt write-off.
Right.
Mathematically speaking, any debt is serviceable as long as you make the debt payments extremely small. So, for example, I can have, let's say, 185% of debt to GDP like Greece more or less has at the moment, and still have it being serviceable because perhaps the interest I'm paying on it is like, 0 point something percent, and the average maturity is like 30 to 40 years. So any debt can mathematically end up being possible, because if you push debt way far into the future, what you're actually doing is reducing its real value, because the nominal value remains the same, but the net present value decreases, because sometime in the future inflation is going to normalize again, which means that inflation is going to actually work like a debt write-off.
Sure.
It's like an interest to the debtors.
Right.
But that's all very theoretical. The actual truth at the moment is the following: that we have a government that is actually like a Frankenstein, meaning that it has 1/3 of the party members of the current Syriza government are communists, and the other 2/3 are, on average, I would call them socialists. So let's say in the center of the political spectrum. So 1/3 of them would actually want to see Greece leave the euro, go to drachma, and everything that goes with it. And the other 2/3 have a totally different viewpoint. They want Greece to remain part of the eurozone, etc. Now, the problem is that they have all committed, that's why they got voted, that Greece will remain a eurozone member.
Right.
Greece joining the eurozone under the specific circumstances it did was a mistake. If Greece leaves the eurozone at the moment, it's going to be a way, way bigger mistake. At the moment, the productive base of the Greek economy is completely destroyed. If Greece leaves the eurozone, we'll have to use its own currency, we'll have to seriously devalue, which means that the classes that are going to be hit the most are people that are already suffering, because, for example, people that have, medium and high income families, let's say, they've already had some money on the side, they already have them in foreign accounts, which means that they're going to find themselves with euros in an economy that will be using drachmas, which means that actually they're not going to be worse off. But people that are, poor or near poor, they have no savings, so they will have to make do with drachmas, and they will have to, as you said, to keep buying most of the things they need from things that are imported, which means from things that are going to be skyrocketing in value because of the devalued new currency.
Yeah,
which
because
isn't a viable option.
Because if I'm selling goods, I'm not going to want. I'd rather have euros that I know has stability versus having the drachma.
Exactly, and you know what's going to happen in this situation. You're going to get a drachma. You're going to have a serious bout of inflation coming in. Why? Because almost everything is going to increase in value because they're important. So
Right.
you will suddenly have a devalued currency and inflation at the same time, and a devastated productive base, and you will have to build an economy from scratch under the worst kind of circumstances. Actually, what I said before is not far from the truth. It's going to be equivalent to building a country after, war, building the economy from scratch after, a war situation or,
Right.
huge country destruction. You can call it whatever you like.
Now, I know you really wanted to talk about the political environment, and I know I've been derailing you with some questions here, so I don't want to do that anymore.
No. I'm free for anything you like.
Okay.
I just want to end up explaining
Yeah.
why there is no agreement yet and why this is not something easy to happen.
Yeah.
And it's purely political. It's
Okay.
purely political because the current government, to get the vote of the average Greek, which obviously has already proven that he or she is not so smart. Greeks are still voting in an opportunistic way, which obviously haven't done them any good during the past 40 years and won't do them any good in the future or at present. Just to give
How many governments have you had in the last 10 years?
I've lost count. I don't know. Close to 10. I don't know. No, 10 years. Yeah, I don't know. No, the first part of the 10 years was more stable. I would say, I don't know, 6, 7 governments.
My goodness. Okay. So again, and so the political environment is extremely tricky. So you got the Greek government, which they promised.
First of all, let me give you some numbers that are extremely, extremely interesting.
Okay.
For every day that we stall and delay making an agreement, the Greek economy is losing several tenths of millions of GDP. 59 companies go down every day, and 600 people lose their job every day. Those
Wow.
numbers don't sound so big, but I need to remind you that the Greek economy is at the moment a 185 billion economy.
You
And
only have
an
11 million people with 5 million in the workforce right now.
from which 3.5 million are currently employed. So when you have 600 people lose their jobs from the 3.5 million, that's a lot. And
It
that's
is.
per day. Okay. So why is this happening? I told you the previous time you had me on your webinar. Because since the situation stalled, there is a complete suspension of payments internally. Nobody is getting paid from the Greek state besides salaries and pensioners. Nobody else is being paid. So anybody, suppliers of the public state, importers or whatever else, nobody gets paid. Everything is being pushed in the future. So at the moment, technically the Greek economy is not defaulted, but at the moment I assume that we're like, I don't know, like 5 to 8 billion under, because that's how much we owe just to be to zero, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so obviously the situation in Greece is extremely dire, and I guess since we only have 15 minutes left, Steve, so there's two questions. One question is what happens now, and the second question would be, well, what happens now moving forward here in the next week or two? Because we're obviously at a big inflection point. We have been for the last month. I heard one of the reasons why the euro is higher is because the Athens government in Athens might be able to piece together the IMF payment for this week. But what happens next week, and what continues to happen? I mean, obviously we're at a point where where Athens and Greece is putting together money feverishly to make payments, but this can't go on forever. So what happens now, and how does that affect the rest of the global economy? Are we better prepared for what could possibly be devastating in Greece?
Let me answer the last part first.
Okay.
Are we better prepared? I'm now talking as a European, not as a Greek, or as a citizen, let's say, of the world. Yes. Can we say that that means we're completely shielded? Definitely not. Nobody can make assumptions of what a Greek default would mean. Definitely risk off, at least on a short-term basis. Definitely a huge, huge hit on the Eurozone construction, which is anyhow flawed. But that would immediately put a huge dent in the armor, because that would mean that in action you can see that this is not a one-way street anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And plenty of countries are not happy with the things that are working here. The Eurozone was a construction that was built on concessions that you start from point A and you reach point Z, where point Z is federalization, which means with transfer of payments and everything. As always, monetary union was easy to accomplish, especially under good circumstances, but when it came down to actually making it a federal state like the US, every country wanted to keep, the control for themselves. So actually the last and most important step that's actually needed never happened, and I don't know if it's going to happen. As long as this is not the case, the Eurozone construction is hugely flawed. But let's not generalize. Let's say what the problem is at the moment and what I see. I had said to our common friend Stelios since months ago when Syriza took over that we will soon see the day, it's a matter of weeks or months, that either Syriza in its current form is going to survive or the Greek state, and that has never been more true than today. The problem is that there cannot be an agreement because Syriza has promised things they cannot deliver, and 1/3 of them are communists, which means that it's not that they can only say that, listen, we made a mistake, we cannot deliver what we said, and we're going to do something else, because one third of their own party is not going to vote for that. So what is being proposed by the Troika cannot survive a vote from the Syriza party members.
So it doesn't matter what the Troika passes over to the
Blake? Blake?
Hey,
Blake?
Steve, it's Kip. I know he was having some internet issues.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We might have just lost him again.
Yeah, probably yes, but I needed to be sure that it wasn't my internet, although I don't have internet issues.
No, I know.
So let me at least since everybody else is listening, I'll keep on saying what I was saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Until we get Blake back. So the problem is, as I was saying, the problem is that a vote is going to go through the Greek parliament because it's going to be supported by other parties, but it's not going to be supported by the majority of Syriza, which means that they will have to concede that their own people are not with them anymore, which means that they don't want to bring an agreement that will expose their internal conflict at the moment. So on one hand, they have a clock ticking, which is like a time bomb, which is, country going officially bankrupt. And on the other hand, they have the problem that they have a ticking bomb inside their own party, which is the government party at the moment. And that's why it's very tricky for them to agree to what the Troika is suggesting at the moment. And that's why the situation is very, very complicated. Very complicated. I think that we'll have to end up going to new elections at some point. They'll have to bring, I don't think that Tsipras, which is the prime minister at the moment, is going to take the responsibility of getting the state to bankruptcy. So they'll probably, at the 11th hour, as they say in English, going to bring an agreement that is going to be voted by the parliament, but not by the majority of his party. So after that, they're going to have to go to new elections. So that's a political situation at the moment.
I have a question just out of curiosity. Is there any type, I don't want to use the word mass exodus, but are there a lot of people leaving Greece right now because of their fears and concerns and of everything going on?
Many people don't know, but the past 3 generations of Greeks are extremely educated. We're talking about people with average education of university degree. So those people are in demand abroad. And yes, we have a lot of smart people leaving the country and seeking employment abroad. Already a lot of them have done it during the past years. And as you understand, this trend has accelerated, which is a huge blow for the Greek economy as well, if you understand, because just to give you an idea, the average university graduate in Greece has costed the Greek state around 180,000 euros. So not only the state budget has educated those people, but those people will end up offering their services elsewhere. Yes, exactly.
Sorry, guys, I'm back. By the way.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I was listening the whole time. My audio wasn't working, but it's working fine now. So.
Okay, cool. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I got to finish.
Right. Thanks, Kip. I appreciate it. Sorry, Steve. I was listening and I heard a majority of everything. So, continue on, please.
So, to recap what I said, Blake, is that the government knows that if they bring a deal that is doable at the moment, it's going to be voted by the parliament because some of the other parties are going to vote for it, and like 2/3 of Syriza is going to vote for it, but 1/3 of Syriza is not going to vote for it, which actually means that then they don't have any more a majority, because with 1/3 of their party not being with them anymore, that means that they have less than 50% of the parliament seats. which means that they will postpone bringing an agreement until the 11th hour, trying to find any other kind of solution that they can find, because they know that either with the current the current data as we know it, it's either them that are going to survive or the Greek state.
Right. So,
Needless to say, I think that Syriza is going to get control of the government again, even after elections. But it's going to be a different Syriza. They're going to lose 1/3 of them and probably import other members of parliament from other parties that are related to their majority. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, let's say, okay, let's say, first of all, do you really think any of the trochia, any of the creditors are going to budge much on reforms? I mean,
No.
I think they've made it very clear that they want the current Syriza, current government in Athens, to respect what the previous government had signed in the past, and it's not their responsibility to change what has already been agreed to.
No, they're not going to budge in to reforms because simply what they're asking for is X amount of money in equivalence, and we can choose the equivalence for the Greek budget to be balanced, and actually with a little bit of surplus, so you can slowly repay something. But the problem, Blake, is that the moment the Greek economy is destroyed. So in a sense, Syriza is right that at the current state, the country cannot withstand any more reforms, any more contractionary measures, because it already had a huge dose within a very limited amount of time. But on the other hand, maths don't lie, and maths say that there have to be more reforms. But if you add to that ethical matters and social matters, you understand that the balancing of things is very, very, very tricky. For example, yeah, the pension system won't survive far in the future, but to be honest, I can tell you the same for any single country in the world at the moment, almost any single country in the world. If you project 50 years in the future, do you think that US economy is sustainable with current spending? No, it's not. Obviously, with Greece, the situation is a lot worse. No doubt on that. But anyhow, maths don't lie. There have to be some reforms. But on the other hand, how can you say to people that we're paying to pension funds for 30 and 40 years, so at some point they can collect some pension that will let them live decently? How can you explain to them that after 50% of haircut to their pensions, they have to have even more? I mean, how can people that have been living a specific lifestyle for 40 years start living at their elderly years, you know, with less than half of what they needed? You understand?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
there are ethical and social issues involved as well.
Sure.
If we want to be honest, Greece needs to be able to contribute to recover and to be able to contribute to the Eurozone economy and to its members. It needs a Marshall Project. You remember, as the Marshall Project in Europe after the World War II.
Sure.
It means it needs, obviously it needs control from the Troika or whoever, but it needs an expansionary package. It needs something to at last boost some growth, to at last reverse the specific downward spiral path it has been on for the past 5 years. Otherwise, every single year we will be realizing that there are more measures needed to balance the budget because contractionary measures bring contraction. And since everything is counted as a percentage of GDP, when you decrease the denominator, you know what it is, then, you know, this thing keeps on going eternally.
Yeah,
And
right.
this has to stop. So IMF is more or less right. Greece needs a serious debt write-off, and then it needs a serious reform list that will include both measures to change several of the plenty of the weaknesses that the Greek state has, but at the same time, a plan to, to reverse the course and head towards some growth. Greece has sectors that are healthy. It has the tourist sector, which is extremely healthy, although, it's having a tough time as well due to the situation with the country. And it also has a shipping sector that's extremely healthy. Many people don't know that,
what sector? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the what sector?
Shipping sector. Greek ship owners are actually
Shipping sector. Shipping.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
The Greek shipping sector is one of the strongest globally, and you understand what that means for a country that has 11 million people. So
Right.
there are pillars that the economy can build upon. There are two very strong pillars that the economy can build upon. But this cannot happen as long as the path we're following is the same we have been during the past 5 years.
Understand. Well, a comment that our time is up, Steve, and I want to first of all tell you how much I myself and everybody else here appreciates you being on with us today. I know you have to get hopping. Rick wrote in. He said, "What a great interview, Blake. That was terrific input. I don't know if the community are aware how important the Greek situation is and how important the outcome will be. I hope someone has recorded and you're able to tweet this. This affects the geopolitical situation." It really does. And actually, Ziggy in New York, he's going to be, he recorded this. I will be tweeting it out. Make sure you guys retweet this to everybody you know. This is a very, very important, not only a political situation, Steve, but as you pointed out, very, very important from a moral standpoint. The Greek economy, the global economy, as a Greek citizen, as a global citizen, it's a very, very important issue that needs to be dealt with immediately. So thank you so much for being here today.
It was a pleasure as always, Blake.
And
thank you very much for having me.
Yes, thank you. And thank you. Yeah, on behalf of everybody listening in right now, everybody's very appreciative of you being here. So thank you very much, Steve. Have a wonderful afternoon there.
Have a nice day to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye-bye, Kip.
Bye-bye.
And hey, Kip, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Blaker?
Good. Very, very enlightening, wasn't that?
It was. Yeah. How long now has this been an issue with Greece? What, are we a couple of years into this?
5 years into this.
5 years?
Yes. So.
We needed, I'm sure more than anything, the Greek citizens need a resolution, but also really the rest of the world wants to know, what's up, what's going to happen.
Yeah, and we don't know, and it's a pickle. I mean, it's a pickle that everybody's in. It's not just Greece. It's, whether you're looking at it from a German standpoint, you're looking at it from the rest of the Europe standpoint, you're looking at it from a Greek standpoint. It's a very, very tricky situation, and so and no one knows what the outcome will be. But I will tell you, we are coming to a head, Kip. And if you are, sitting on the sideline saying, "Hey, that's Greece. It's not me." Wherever you live, wherever you may be, I think that's a pretty shallow standpoint where you have to understand that this is a global issue that we're dealing with, and the knock-on effects of Greece has big implications throughout Europe and throughout the rest of the globe. So it's something that I believe we all have to be coherent of. But so Kip, I know I'm going to turn it over to you. I don't want to take away any of your time. So thanks everybody for being here this morning. I will be back in 3 hours on the Lunch Money webinar. You guys have a great session. Have a great trading day, Kip.
Thanks. You too, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Wow. Great interview with Steve Vulgi from Greece. Awesome. Just always a pleasure to have him as a guest.